to get the divorce. I calmly told Julian I'd cheated. After all, our marriage was nothing but a corporate merger on paper. Legal force. Zero soul. He leaned back on the sofa, legs crossed. A judge with the emotion chip removed, and casually fired off one word. Who? An artist. Great in bed. Doesn't linger. I made it sound trashy on purpose. Fishing for a ripple. The man famous for glacial composure crushed the stem of his crystal goblet instead. Scarlet wine bled across the white shirt he hadn't loosened all day. His eyes, two storms I'd never seen, pinned me. Great in bed. Then drag him out. Let me grade the performance. Or does your gutter rat only talk big in the dark? Julian, let's end this. I slid the already signed divorce papers across the mahogany toward him. Voice as flat as a weather report. 3 years of matrimonial theater. We played loving couple for cameras. Then retreated to opposite wings of the same glass house. He never lifted his gaze from the tablet, where Caldwell's quarterly numbers glowed. Reason. It's empty. I'd rehearsed this. I leaned in, palms on the freezing wood, meeting the screen's reflected glare. I'm in love with someone else. The air congealed. His finger froze mid-scroll. At last he looked up, face Michelangelo perfect, eyes hurricane dark. Say that again. Quiet words. Asphalt-thick pressure before the downpour. I cheated. I fell for him. We're done. I even tacked on a smirk, like sliding a blade between ribs. I expected shouting, a payoff, a hostile takeover of my life. Instead, he stared, chest punching against his shirt, then a smile, no teeth, no warmth, cut across his face. So that's my answer? He rose, each step slow, deliberate, until his shadow swallowed me. I backed up, spine hitting marble. 3 years of polite frost, and now some nobody makes you file for divorce? He caged my chin, thumb a steel vice. Summer, did you mistake me for reasonable? It was a transaction. Julian, check the ledger. I winced, tried to twist free. Transaction? He laughed, hurled me onto the suede couch, hovered like a verdict, then dumped the boyfriend. Why bankrupt our contract? His lunacy almost made me laugh. Your rivalry isn't my problem. Some alley mutt put you up to this? The madness in him brightened. Fine. As long as I don't sign. He stays a mutt. Dream on. He dialed in front of me. Upgrade perimeter to Delta. Nothing flies out without my handshake. Not even a fruit fly. The phone slammed onto the onyx table. Clap of doom. He braced over me, arms a locked gate. Until you rethink it. This house is your world. I was a prisoner. Overnight. Ex-Navy ghosts patrolled every hall. My phone, laptop, even the smart fridge, confiscated. Julian worked from the living room, occasionally glancing up, weaving a net I couldn't see but felt tighten every second. What do you want? I finally exploded. He closed the Caldwell report. Calm, lethal. For you to think. I want out. Keep thinking. I wanted to scream. Where was the tycoon who could bankrupt a rival between sips of espresso? This man looped like broken code. This is illegal detention. Julian. He arched a brow. Caldwell strolls in her own fortress. Call it whatever you like. The title he stressed felt like a brand. I inhaled, switched tactics. Fine, no exit. Then explain, why cling to a deal that's already paid off? Divorce doesn't scratch Caldwell's stock. Silence stretched, thick as smoke. At last he spoke, voice rough. Who what? The man. His irises sparked. Twin fuses. Name him. An idea struck. Months ago I'd collaborated with a young gallery owner, 3 coffees, 0 contact, just paintings and invoices. I'd even mentioned the meetings to Julian to avoid gossip. You wouldn't know him. I hedged. Keys? Gifted. Gifted? He moved to the whiskey cabinet, liquid gold glugging into a tumbler. Richer than me? Love isn't currency. A humorless chuckle. He tossed the drink back, throat working, collar open, collarbone sharp in the lamplight. I noticed, annoyed that I noticed. So his brushstrokes blew up your common sense? He closed in. When did you decide predictable was a crime? Predictable is a cage. His sarcasm scalds. I shout. I can map the next 30 years. Galas, boardrooms, charity auctions. Your icy shoulder at 2 a.m. He snatched my wrist, yanked me flush, breath scorching my ear. You're living every woman's fantasy and call it a cage? His free hand traced my cheek, callous thumb whispering threats in braille. Tell me it was a fling. End it. And the slate wipes. I stared into that whirlpool gaze, realizing I'd never met the real Julian beneath the quarterly statements. His phone rang. He glanced, eyes icing over, thumbed speaker without caring I heard. His assistant's panic crackled. Caldwell. Caldwell's Instagram just. Julian's stare pinned me. My stomach dropped. I'd posted of close friends only a shot. a masculine hand swirling paint on palette. Captioned Muse. The hand was mine. Shot in the mirror. He didn't know that. Knuckles whitening around the phone. Julian ordered, leave it up. A pause thin as razor wire. I'll handle the artist personally. Destroy him. Retribution arrived before sunrise. Every finance homepage and art blog screamed, young gallery tycoon Lucas Yates arrested for money laundering. Are the $1 million canvases fake? Inside the art scam of the century, the butler slipped me the print edition. My fingers numbed. Lucas's 3 meetings. Polite laughs. Palms never touching, ruined with a stroke of Julian's pen. I stormed the study, slapped the paper onto his mahogany. You've lost your mind. He removed gold-rimmed glasses, set them beside a Mont Blanc, eyes glittering with savage satisfaction. Insane. My wife defends her lover and calls me crazy. He isn't my lover. I shook so hard the room blurred. We collaborated on one exhibition, then explained the Instagram ode. It was, I swallowed the truth. I am Summer, society wife. I am also XA, the anonymous street mural painter whose work sells in back alley galleries from Berlin to Bushwick. That post was the only exit left in my gilded prison, and I just locked it from the inside. My silence fed his smirk. Speechless. I can finish the story for you. You wrecked him on a hunch? On a vow. He lifted my chin between 2 fingers. Husband overrides Muse. Always. He leaned in, his warm breath brushing my cheek. His words ice cold. Summer, this is only the beginning. I warned you, let him dream. Now I'll make sure he can't even dream. I stared at the stranger in front of me. A chill shot from my soles to the top of my skull. For 3 years, I thought we were nothing more than intimate strangers. He had his business empire. I had my art world. We stayed out of each other's way. I even believed my existence meant nothing to him. Now I realized how wrong I'd been. This man wasn't some indifferent iceberg, he was a volcano. And once he erupted, he could incinerate everything. He hadn't been indifferent. He'd been confining me to his world in a language I couldn't read. Julian, what exactly do you love about me? I blurted, then instantly regretted it. He froze. For the first time, something like bewilderment surfaced in those fathomless eyes. Love. Maybe the word had never crossed his mind. Our beginning had been a corporate swap. The Caldwell family needed the Vance family's port rights. My father needed Caldwell cash to keep his company from bankruptcy, and I was the product on the shelf. On our wedding night, he'd said, Summer, play the part of Caldwell and don't cause trouble. Beyond that, I can give you anything. Back then the deal sounded fair. Now the party of the first part seemed ready to tear up the no interference clause unilaterally. He didn't answer. He only studied me with a complicated gaze, anger, reluctance, and something I couldn't name that looked almost like hurt. Right then warmth brushed my ankle. I looked down. Machi, the ragdoll cat Julian had adopted, was rubbing its fluffy head against me. I remembered mentioning, soon after we married, that the cat was cute. The next day Julian brought it home. Mainly for company, he'd said, so you won't be bored. Now the animal I usually ignored offered silent comfort with its soft body. A tiny bell on its collar tinkled with every movement. I suddenly understood that, besides cold furniture and silent Julian, this living creature existed in the house because of me. Julian started trying to fix us in clumsy, obsessive ways. He cleared his evenings of every non-essential dinner and came home on the dot. At dinner he awkwardly dropped food onto my plate, each dish something I'd once casually said I liked. He also bought racks of gorgeous dresses I would never wear, stuffing the walk-in closet with them. Every piece carried a 4-figure price tag and the labels were still attached. He seemed convinced that objects were the only spackle for our cracks. It made me feel even more suffocated. I don't need these. I pointed at the glittering heap. He was knotting his tie. His hands paused and he met my eyes in the mirror. Don't all women like this stuff? I'm not all women. Then what do you like? He turned, brow creased. Whatever that man can give you, I can double. Again, he could always steer the conversation back to the wild man. I didn't bother arguing. I spun to leave, but he caught my wrist. Summer, let's talk. A trace of weariness colored his voice. There's nothing to talk about unless you agree to divorce. Anything but that. The tug of war drained me. I started having insomnia, nightmares every night. In them I was locked inside a gilded cage while Julian stood outside, face blank. I lost weight fast. Within days my cheeks hollowed. The housekeeper couldn't take it and quietly urged Julian, Sir, if this continues, Caldwell's health will collapse. Julian stared at my ashen face. A flicker of pain crossed his eyes before obstinacy clamped down again. One night I woke from a nightmare soaked in sweat. My mouth was parched, so I went downstairs for water. As I passed the study, I noticed light leaking through the door. I stopped, inexplicably drawn, and peeked through the crack. Julian wasn't working. He sat on the rug, back to me, the coffee table covered in framed pictures. Those images, my pupils contracted. Every single one was a piece I'd sprayed or painted as the graffiti artist XIA. Photos of murals on a abandoned walls. Printed and matted. Small oils I'd auctioned anonymously years ago. The styles were all over the map. The originals scattered worldwide. How had he collected them? I watched his fingertips graze one canvas. A little girl in a spacesuit sitting on the moon on a swing. In the corner, the tiny signature, XIA. His touch was reverent, as if caressing something priceless. Freedom. I heard the word slip from him, so low it was almost air. My heart slammed against my ribs. He had always known freedom was my dream. Then he turned, sensing me. Our eyes locked. The fascination and fragility in his gaze had no time to hide. Exposed raw. He froze. I froze. For the first time I saw something in them besides frost and mania. He scrambled up, trying to shove the pictures away, but it was too late. My throat was sand. You saw? His voice was hoarse. I nodded. The study sank into dead silence. He studied me. Emotions tangled. Then managed. I didn't investigate you. I believed him. If he had, he'd have known I was XIA ages ago. I just really like this artist's work. He looked away, ears reddening. Her paintings have something I don't. An urgency to break every chain. That secret felt like a stone dropped into the stagnant pond of my heart. Ripples spreading outward. I started seeing him differently. He wasn't merely the cold, controlling tycoon. He was XIA's secret fan. The realization was absurd and weirdly touching. Our relationship slipped from open hostility into an eerie ceasefire. He quit interrogating me about the wild man, quit drowning me in luxuries. He still came home on time, then locked himself in the study and stared at my canvases all night. Sometimes I spied from the doorway. With a professional cloth, he'd dust each frame. Devotion on his face like a worshipper. I even wondered if what he loved wasn't me but XIA. Today was Caldwell's anniversary gala. As Caldwell, I had to appear. Inside the walk-in, Julian picked out a starry blue evening gown. This color matches your eyes, he said from behind me, voice low. I stayed silent while he fastened the matching diamond necklace. The cold stones made me shiver. His fingers paused, then gently smoothed the collar. Let's go. He offered his hand. I hesitated, then slid my fingers into his. His palm was warm, dry, strong, swallowing my icy hand. The ballroom glittered, champagne towers, perfume, small talk. Julian steered me through the crowd, fielding compliments and envy with practiced ease. Mr. and Caldwell, made for each other. 3 years married and still so in love. I wore the smile the role required while emptiness echoed inside. Then a familiar silhouette cut through the crowd. Landon. He'd lost weight, face drawn, but retained his gentle elegance. Beside him stood a famous art critic. They seemed deep in discussion. My heart catapulted into my throat. Julian noticed too. The hand holding mine clamped tighter. He bent to my ear. Whisper soft. Don't be afraid. I'm here. The tone didn't sound like a threat. More like reassurance. Startled, I glanced up. He wasn't looking at me. His stare was fixed on Landon, sharp as a blade. Landon saw us. His gaze brushed my face, shifted to Julian, gave a polite nod, and moved on to strangers again. I exhaled. Julian, however, wasn't finished. He led me straight toward Landon. With every step the chill rolling off him deepened. Landon, Julian greeted, smiling yet mirthless. Long time no see, how've you been? Adrian's face went a shade paler, but he kept his poise. Thanks to Caldwell, I'm hanging in there. Really? Julian chuckled and tugged me even closer, his arm a steel band around my waist. Broadcasting ownership to anyone watching. My wife admires your work. She's been saying how much she'd love to chat. Why don't you drop by the house sometime? Every muscle in my body locked. What is he doing? Is this an ambush invitation? Adrian's gaze slid to Julian's hand on my waist. Something dimmed in his eyes before he shrugged it off. No need. Caldwell and I had a straightforward business deal. It's finished. So I won't trouble her anymore. Clean, flawless, no cracks. Julian acted as if he hadn't heard. Oh, just business? He bent to my ear, intimate enough that his breath tickled, and murmured, baby. Is that true? Warm air brushed my ear. Prickly. Electric. I was frozen solid. Baby. Julian actually called me baby. Every guest had swiveled toward our trio. I saw Adrian's fingers curl into a fist at his side. Julian wore the easy smile of a man who'd already won, waiting for my answer. The hand resting on my waist felt gentle only at first glance. Underneath, the grip was brutal, a warning that one wrong syllable would cost me. I said nothing, just pulled a stiff smile. Julian seemed pleased. He gave my waist a little squeeze, the way you pat an obedient ragdoll cat, then told Adrian, looks like my wife's shy. Enjoy your evening, Lou. He turned us both and walked off, leaving Adrian alone, complexion ashen. Midway through the gala came the charity auction. The final lot was an anonymous canvas. When the curtain dropped, stopped. My lungs forgot how to breathe. It was my painting. Last year I donated it anonymously to the charity. A girl trapped inside a glass bottle, staring up at a butterfly hovering over the mouth. I titled it Exit. The piece held every atom of my hunger for freedom. I shot a glance at Julian. He stared at the stage, face unreadable, apparently unaware it was a XIA original. Opening bid, 500,000. Paddles lifted, 607. The number climbed to 1.5 million, then stalled, just before the gavel fell. A cool voice sliced through the hush. 5 million. Gasps rippled outward. Every head spun toward the sound. Julian held his paddle like he was ordering coffee. My heart hammered. What game is he playing? The auctioneer startled, then beamed. Caldwell bids 5 million. Any advance? Silence. Dropping 5 million on a debut piece wasn't charity. It was flexing. 5 million. Going once. Twice. Crack. Sold to Caldwell for $5 million. Congratulations on acquiring Exit. Amid thunderous applause, Julian rose, straightened his jacket, and looked straight at me. That look carried entire conversations. Was he warning me he could buy even my off-freedom? Humiliation and rage flooded my cheeks. The ride home was wordless. The painting, wrapped and boxed, sat between us like a silent referee. Once inside, Julian uncrated it and hung it dead center over the living room sofa. The cold, lifeless space suddenly pulsed with color. He stood there a long minute. I hovered behind him, voice icy. What was that? Public humiliation? He didn't turn. You're overthinking. Then explain it. Flashing 5 million for that canvas just to flash your wallet? I simply didn't want it in anyone else's hands. Soft, almost tired, he faced me, and for the first time I saw fragility in his eyes. Summer. The moment I saw it, something hurt. He tapped the glass-trapped girl. She feels like you. My heart missed a beat. The you I've locked away. A bitter laugh. I know you're unhappy. I went about it all wrong. I just don't know another way. I'm scared. Each word landed like a stone. Terrified you'll actually leave. The great Julian, untouchable titan, admitting fear. Moonlight poured through the picture window, stretching his shadow till it looked lonely. His fingers curled at his sides. The tiny tell he'd always had when nervous, one I'd never noticed. The man I'd been dying to escape might bleed the same red I did. That night Julian drank. He never came to bed, just collapsed on the couch still cradling the painting. When I draped a blanket over him, he muttered in his sleep, "Summer, don't go." Summer, the voice of a lost kid. I sat on the rug, studying his sleeping profile. Emotions tangled. I told myself he was ice. Our marriage, nothing but a profit statement. Now I wondered, if it was only a deal, why did one lie about cheating unravel him? Why chase every anonymous canvas? Why cling so clumsily? Morning came with his hangover. I handed him warm honey water. Our fingertips brushed. Both of us jerked back as if shocked. Awkwardness hovered. "Thanks," he rasped, throat working as he sipped. "Julian," I began, forcing courage. "Can we talk like normal people?" Bloodshot eyes lifted. He nodded. "Why won't you sign the divorce papers?" The core question. He stayed quiet so long I thought he'd checked out. Then, gravel voice, "Because I'm used to you." "Used to me?" "Yeah." A loneliness I couldn't name flickered. "I'm used to seeing you when I wake up. Used to your coffee cup on the table. Used to your dresses next to mine. Used to you being in my world. That routine, it makes this place feel like home. I never had one. Flat. Matter of fact. Like he was reading a report. My mom died when I was 5. My father kept many houses. None for me. Boarding schools raised me. I learned to price everything. Then you walked in. Warmth crept into his gaze. Our marriage started as a transaction. I thought it would stay cold, like any other deal. I was wrong. You moved in and suddenly the rooms weren't empty. You did nothing. Yet you filled everything. Summer. I don't know if this is love. A shaky laugh. I just know I can't lose these habits. I can't go back to being alone. His words slammed into me. I'd never guessed that behind the steel lived a boy who'd grown up in deserted hallways. His habit sounded like the clumsiest love letter ever written. A dragon guarding treasure, unable to say I love you, so he circles the gold and snarls at every intruder. Maybe the cage I'd fought was the only way he knew how to build a home. My compass spun. I began to really look at him. Not a business partner, a husband. Little things surfaced. He hates cilantro and green onions. Yet if I cook them he eats every bite without blinking. He rewatches Charlie Chaplin alone in the study and laughs out loud. He's a neat freak, but his ragdoll cat mochi sprawls across his pillow and he lets it slide. Those tiny, trivial details click together in my mind like jigsaw pieces, gradually assembling a Julian I had never met before. He was no longer an untouchable emblem. He had turned into a flesh and blood man with likes, dislikes, and soft spots. My determination to divorce began to waver. Maybe I could try, give him a chance, and give myself one too. Just as I steeled myself to confront him and confess that the affair was only a lie, an accident slammed into our lives. My father's call split the evening open. His voice shook with a terror I'd never heard. Summer, come home, now. Your mom, she collapsed. By the time I barreled through the hospital doors, she was already inside the emergency suite. Dad was slumped on a corridor bench, looking 10 years older overnight. Dad, what happened? He lifted his head, lips trembling, unable to push out a syllable. At last he drew a crumpled newspaper from his coat and pressed it into my hand. It was the local evening edition, entertainment front page. Bold black headline, Caldwell, CEO's wife caught cheating with street prodigy XIA. True identity exposed. There I was on newsprint, masked, hooded, spray painting a wall. Only half my face showed, but anyone who knew me would recognize me instantly. Below that were shots of me meeting Adrian at the gallery, snapped from vicious angles that made conversation look like a secret tryst. The article slandered me viciously, as a faithless, immoral woman whose artistic success supposedly rode on illicit pillow talk. Mom has high blood pressure. The shock of seeing the story shot it through the roof and felled her. My hands shook so hard the paper rattled. Who was gunning for me? At that moment the emergency doors swung open. The doctor stepped out, tugging off his mask. His face grim. She's stable for now, but there's early sign of a minor stroke. She must be admitted immediately. The floor seemed to tilt. I swayed, almost going down. A hand caught me in time. I turned. Julian. He must have arrived unnoticed, his eyes blazing with worry I'd never seen before. I'll handle it, he said quietly, yet with iron in every syllable. You stay here with your mom. He plucked the newspaper from my fingers, skimmed it, and his gaze went arctic. Leave it to me. Those 4 words. Then he strode away, watching his broad back disappear around the corner. My panic eased for the first time since the call came. Julian's speed left me dizzy. Within an hour every negative post about me had vanished from the internet. The paper that printed the lies received a Caldwell legal notice hand-delivered by courier. Minutes later Caldwell's official account dropped a statement, signed with Julian's personal handle. It opened, My wife, Summer, is a gifted artist. Every accolade she owns was earned through her own talent and grind. Malicious rumors will be pursued to the full extent of the law. At the end he tacked on one more sentence. Furthermore, all works by XIA are copyrighted and wholly owned by me. Challenge that in court if you wish. The post detonated the web. Hashtag Julian protects wife, hashtag XIA real face, hashtag couple goals. Trend after trend rocketed to the top of every feed. The world gaped. This wasn't mere clarification. It was loud, proud possession. A declaration broadcast planet-wide. Tears scalded my eyes as I stared at the screen. Inside the ward, Mom had regained consciousness. Speech came slowly, but color had returned to her cheeks. Julian had arranged top-tier nurses and doctors on 24-hour standby. After he finished at headquarters, he showed up at the hospital, peeled an apple, carved it into tiny squares, stuck toothpicks in them, and held one to my lips. Eat something. I shook my head. No appetite. He sighed, set the fruit aside, and wrapped my hand in both of his. I'm sorry, he said, eyes heavy with blame. I failed to protect you. It's not your fault. It is. His stare was grave. If I'd made you feel safe earlier, you wouldn't have needed that lie to force a divorce. He paused. I knew the truth a long time ago. I jerked my head up, stunned. I traced the IP on that Instagram post right inside our house. I watched the CCTV of every meeting between you and Adrian. Nothing improper ever happened. Then why? The question lodged halfway. No exit. Why keep playing along with my farce? Because, he gave a rueful smile, I was scared. Afraid that if I tore the curtain down, the last buffer between us would vanish and we'd be beyond saving. I'd rather believe you'd fallen for someone else. At least then I'd have a clear villain. I could fight him, crush him, steal you back. But I finally realized my real enemy is me. 3 years of ice shoved you further away. I didn't know how to love, so you ran. Summer, your other man isn't human, it's freedom. Your mural. The glittering world I never bothered to see. His grip tightened around my fingers. Now I understand. His free hand brushed my cheek, tenderness flooding his gaze. I know exactly how phenomenal my wife the artist is. So, can we try again? This time I don't want to be your cage. I want to be your muse. The afternoon Mom was discharged. The sky was flawless. Julian drove us himself. No austere black suit, just a soft white sweater that shaved the edges off his usual severity. Back home I found the place reborn. Our once sterile showroom of a living room had been rearranged. My canvases no longer stood in lonely isolation. They mingled with candid photos of us. Out on the terrace waited a brand new easel, fresh oils and brushes arrayed beside it. Julian curved his arms around found me from behind, chin on my shoulder. From now on this is studio number 1, he murmured. Paint whatever you want. I turned in his embrace. Julian, my fake affair caused you so much grief. Aren't you angry? He smiled, shook his head. Truth. I was furious, wanted to obliterate the man who didn't exist and... yeah. Maybe you along with him. Later, though, I felt grateful. Grateful you took a sledgehammer lie and shattered the shell I'd worn for years, forcing me to face my heart. Summer, I should be thanking you. He bent and pressed a feather-light kiss to my forehead. The house that once suffocated me now radiated steady, comforting warmth. Days later Adrian asked to meet. In the cafe he looked like himself again. I'm sorry, I said, meaning every syllable. I dragged you into that mess. He waved it off, gentle smile in place. No need. Your husband compensated me. My gallery's bigger now. Thanks to him. He studied me. You look happy. I nodded, a smile blooming of its own accord. Then I'm glad. His grin turned wistful. Be well, Summer. Julian and I started learning love like any ordinary couple. We hit the multiplex for blockbusters, bickered over grocery lists, squeezed avocados hand in hand. He tried clumsily to cook for me and turned the kitchen into a disaster zone. I bribed him onto a stool to model. He protested, then struck the perfect pose. With Julian's public backing, my murals stepped onto a new stage. No more hiding, I could stand in sunlight and paint exactly what I loved. Julian became my fiercest fan and staunchest patron. He attended every single exhibition. Once a reporter asked him, Caldwell, which of XIA's works is your favorite? Looking straight at me through the camera, he laughed and said the next one. In that next piece, I painted us, a man and a woman beneath a sky full of stars, he out of his icy suit, she free of her glass bottle, arms linked, feet planted on solid earth, the Milky Way blazing before them. I titled it Us.